Hi everyone, what a quality video for you guys. We know how important diagrams are to back up your analysis, to back up your evaluation in essays. But boy, if you can bring in power diagrams, deep, stunning diagrams, knock the socks off your examiners, you're going to score even higher credit. And that's exactly what this video is for. Stunning diagrams, 5 diagrams here, which you should weigh up in your revision, know really well. If relevant, bring them into your micro essays and watch those marks go up. This video complements my other video on power micro diagrams. Watch them both, make sure you have them all in, use them in your essays, and you're going to be in a great position. Here we go. What's the first diagram to consider? Well, use the monopoly diagram to showcase the difference between monopoly market outcomes and competitive market outcomes. Here we have a very simple monopoly diagram to show monopoly outcomes. We assume profit maximization. That will take us to QM, M for monopoly. Price from the AR curve takes us to PM, but then compare that to competitive market outcomes. Firms who operate in very competitive markets, we know, will be allocatively efficient, taking us to where P or AR equals MC. That's over here, call that QC, competitive outcomes, price PC. So immediately we can see the harm of monopoly on this diagram by comparing to competitive market outcomes, how monopolies restrict output at QM and charge exploitative prices beyond marginal cost. We can also see that there is a deadweight welfare loss when they do that. It's going to be this triangle here, that entire triangle. This little bit is your deadweight loss of consumer surplus. This bit is your deadweight loss of producer surplus. So great to show the harms of monopoly, absolutely, or any policies that maybe allows monopoly outcomes to occur, or if mergers or any kind of anti-competitive practices are being used, taking you to monopoly outcomes, great to show the basic difference. But also this diagram is great if you want to reverse the other way, right? So if a monopoly market is becoming more like a competitive market, maybe through policy or otherwise, then you can show the reverse from PM to PC, QM to QC, the gain of competitive market outcomes and also the gain of consumer surplus, this trapezium here, as we see that movement. So yeah, whether it's competition policy, whether it's privatization, deregulation, nationalization, or anything that's making markets more competitive, a diagram you can use. So a very powerful thing to do here, quite simple, but to compare monopoly outcomes and competitive market outcomes is something you're very likely going to have to do in your micro essays. This is the diagram you can draw to showcase that. Keep going. Next is one of my favorite evaluation points of a monopoly market and how we know in theory a monopoly is productively inefficient, but despite that inefficiency, given its size, might be able to exploit significantly greater economies of scale than very small firms in highly competitive markets, who themselves might be productively efficient, but given their small size, might not be able to exploit anywhere near the level of economies of scale that a monopoly can. The way to diagrammatically showcase that is by taking a long run average cost curve, put a monopoly with their short run AC, short run MC, further down the LRAC curve to show greater economies of scale exploitation compared to very, very small firms in cutthroat competitive markets who can't grow to a very high size and therefore they're much higher up on the LRAC curve. So the economies of scale they're exploiting much less. The end result is their costs and their quantity significantly in a worse position than a monopoly, who despite their inefficiency might have a lower cost and thus be able to price lower and produce higher quantities than teeny firms in very, very competitive markets. So a simple diagram really, but a great way to showcase that evaluation point, the gains of monopoly given greater economies of scale. You could also use this diagram to illustrate the major benefits of a natural monopoly, how one firm that dominates the market in a natural monopoly, where there are huge economies of scale, are more likely to reach the minimum efficient scale, reach kind of towards the bottom of this LRAC curve compared to if you had competitive market outcomes. You can also draw this diagram to illustrate that benefit of natural monopoly. But there you go. Great diagram, one you're very likely to be using, I'm sure. Next is something you must know and something you must be able to do, and that is shifting your cost curves with a business diagram or a market structures related diagram. But know that if fixed costs change, it's only the AC curve that will shift, either up or down, and that is because the rate of change of costs will not change. So MC won't change in that situation, whereas a change in variable costs will affect the rate of change of cost. So you shift AC and you shift MC in that situation. So imagine that you have to show a change in variable costs diagrammatically, or you want to show that diagrammatically, maybe because of a windfall tax, which is a tax per unit, or maybe a windfall tax on revenue, which again will affect variable costs, the way you would do it is like this. So take your bog standard monopoly diagram and just shift up your AC and your MC curve. So a shift up of AC, like this maybe, call it AC2, a shift up of MC, but still cutting AC at its lowest point, which will take us there. Now, where MC2 equals MR, that's going to be profit max, that's over here. So let's call that quantity Q2. And price from the AR curve, P2. So we can see the impact of that, just like a normal tax would do, increasing prices and reducing quantity. But we can also see this squeeze of profit. So AR is where P2 is, but now AC with the new AC curve is over there at profit max Q2, call that C2. So the black box is the new level of profit, considerably less than the blue box prior to it. So all the outcomes you want to show are being shown here. Higher prices, lower quantity, lower profits being made, brilliant. The unintended consequences or the trade-offs of a windfall tax per unit, for example, or a windfall tax on revenue, or just more generally a rise in variable costs, here's how you would do it. But remember, fixed costs only AC, variable costs AC and MC. If you have to do that, you know how to do it now. Now, a really critical diagram if you want to illustrate the benefits of a highly competitive labor market. A labor market that's working well will give a lot of benefits. This is the diagram you will draw. Draw your perfectly competitive labor market diagram. We have the market on the left, a firm who's a wage taker on the right. We assume that these firms are profit maximizing employees, so they're going to employ up until where MRP is equal to the marginal cost of labor, which is there. That's going to give employment of, call it Q2. That's your full diagram. But from there, you can derive the major benefits of a labor market working well. For example, how workers at Q2 are paid exactly equal to their MRP. These are efficient wages. If workers are not paid equal to their MRP, they can go to their employer, bargain for a higher wage, or move to a different employer and get their higher wage that way. So we like efficient wages. Workers are paid equal to their productivity. That's a good thing. But also on this diagram, we can see that Q1 is maximum employment. No other wage rate, whether above equilibrium or below equilibrium, will give employment as high as Q1. So again, great news for workers looking to get into work, looking to earn income and boost their living standards. That's the beneficial outcome here. We can also see how wages are determined by the forces of demand and supply. No one is setting wages, whether a firm or the government, and we get inefficient outcomes that way. No. Wages are determined by the forces of demand and supply. So we're always going to get to equilibrium. We're always going to get to efficient wages that way, but also how there shouldn't be any long-term wage differentials if labor markets are working well because of supply shifts. So wages are low in one profession. Imagine there'll be an exodus of workers from that profession, supply left, and an influx of workers into the profession where wages are higher, supply right, closing the wage differential. So this diagram can illustrate all of those benefits. If you're talking about labor markets working well or the benefits of competitive labor markets, bam, we now know the diagram to draw, how to draw it, how to use it. Fantastic. Let's finish strong, shall we? And lastly, something that seems so basic, right? Your demand and supply shifts, but there is a way for you to show off tremendously when you're drawing these shifts. And that is to remember that when a curve shifts, it shifts for non-price reasons at the original price in the market. And that will always create a disequilibrium that will cause prices to change. When prices change, there are functions that kick in, right? Functions of the price mechanism that will move the market to a new equilibrium. So if relevant, when you're drawing these diagrams, go into that full process. Take a very simple example. This is a demand curve shifting to the right, such a basic diagram. We know the market's going to finish at P2, Q2. We get that. But if relevant, go into the detail of how that works. So this curve shifts at the original price of P1. The disequilibrium will now supply at the price of P1 still is at Q1, whereas demand is now at QD. That's an excess demand. That would put upward pressure on price, let's say from P1 to P2, and then go into the functions of higher prices. How higher prices will signal that there has been an excess demand, but crucially the need for more resources in the market. Higher prices incentivize firms because of higher prices to produce more output now and make more profit that way. That's the incentive function of higher prices. An expansion along the supply curve makes that effect very clear. Higher prices also ration resources by discouraging demand. Contraction along the demand curve makes that clear. And lo and behold, those last two effects get us to that new equilibrium Q2, which is allocative efficiency, where demand equals supply, no more excess demand. So if relevant, go into all of that, not just, oh look, we're at P1, Q1, and then to P2, Q2. Go into the functions of price, go into the disequilibrium at the original price, and show how the market will return to a new equilibrium when there is a shift. Would be stunning if relevant when you're drawing these diagrams in your essays, your micro essays. So there you have it, guys. Great diagrams to be able to draw there. So there you have it, 5 incredible diagrams for you to show off with in your micro essays. Use these well and see those marks go up. Know that this video complements the other video I have on power diagrams for micro essays. Make sure you've watched that one as well. There's so much more to come from me. Stay tuned to the channel. Make sure you're subscribed and just watch everything coming your way as we look forward to smashing these exams together. Thanks for watching this one, guys. Can't wait to see you in future videos.